Kia ora koutou. Hello, friends. Welcome to today's Wellbeing Bite, where we have the absolute pleasure of welcoming Daniela Falecki, who is the teacher wellbeing person. That's the way I like to describe it. I know many others. Daniela is the Director of Teacher Wellbeing over in Australia. She is an educator at heart and works with schools right across Australia. And with that, I'm just going to hand over to Daniela just for a moment so she can just serve up a few words about what she does.
Thank you, Ara. What a pleasure it is to be having this conversation across the seas, you in New Zealand and me in Sydney, Australia. It's certainly crazy times here at the moment. Us here in Australia, we've got these different, we've got our, nationally, we've got these messages, and then with all the states, we've got all these different messages as well. And so I've been working closely with schools. I was a teacher myself for 20 years in high schools and in primary schools, government and independent, and now have the pleasure of working with schools running face-to-face sessions, although now doing a lot of online and Zoom like this as well, pivoting online they call it. And so I've been doing that with teachers across Australia for the last, 8 years or so now, and just really helping teachers prioritise their own well-being, because they're really good at looking after everybody else, not so good at looking after ourselves. And I know that firsthand myself as a teacher.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've loved some of the content and vignettes that you've so generously shared, and I've actually used them in some of the mahi that I do in New Zealand schools over here.
Because it is interesting. I mean, people tag me as the wellbeing lady, and I get all these messages of, so what do we do, and what's the answer, and what's the 3-step plan? And I say there isn't one. And they say, what are you doing? And I say, well, I'm on the roller coaster just like everybody else. There are some moments I wake up and I think, yep, I've got this. I'm all right. This is really exciting. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to actually be at home. I'm excited to be able to connect in different ways. And then there are other moments where I think, I have no idea what I'm doing. I feel like I'm going in circles. I'm not achieving anything. I don't know what to do. So I'm actually just going to sit outside and do nothing, and have a Netflix moment if I like. But there's no one answer. And I think that's one of the biggest things we as teachers need to grapple with, because let's face it, I don't know about you, Ara, but I certainly am a self-confessed control freak. So when in moments of uncertainty and I don't know what to do, I find that really hard to grapple with in my mind. And our brain doesn't like uncertainty as well. So being able to be comfortable with not knowing is the new normal, I think.
Absolutely, and I completely resonate. Sometimes I am on the floor and what I say to myself is, okay, this is a permission to be human moment.
That's right. Yeah, love it. Yeah.
I'll be hopeful and amazing and excited and happy sometimes, and other times I just kind of wallow in my own negativity.
Absolutely. And that's totally. I'm so glad. It's so good to hear other people say that, especially in the field of positive psychology and well-being. And people have this real misconception that it's all about being in happyology land, where I've just got to be well. And I think when COVID first happened and schools went into lockdown and teachers went into panic mode, and some teachers are still in panic mode, and you'd see all these memes come through on social media of, well-being and let's be grateful and let's be happy and let's be mindful. And I think, if one more person tells me to be mindful and grateful, I think I'm just going to slap somebody because I'm struggling and that's not working for me right now. So while those things absolutely are important, they're evidence-based and they work, I think we need to be really careful about context. And there's times to be mindful, sure, there's times to be grateful, but when I'm in high anxiety, really difficult to do those little micro skills.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that almost kind of brings me to my first pondering or wondering, and I'm thinking about So what is it like for an Australian teacher at the
Yeah.
moment? Because you are at the coalface of that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I'm speaking to teachers. I'm not working in a school as a teacher at the moment, but I'm speaking to teachers and principals daily. There's a couple of different things. The first thing is that teachers, their main concern is for their students. So there's a lot of worry, a lot of concern. In Australia also, we've got New South Wales schools have been open the entire time, but only for students who parents are frontline workers. Teachers have been on a rotation basis to coming to school. Then you had some states where the schools were closed completely and it was online learning only. Now what we have across Australia is we have schools are open and students are going back 1 year group at a time, or 25% of students are going back 1 day a week. Schools are really prioritising year 12 students and also early learning, so your kindergarten students. But again, every school's doing it differently, every state's doing it differently, and so it very much is contextual. But so what's the mood for teachers at the moment? Teachers are feeling uncertain. They have not had a break. The admin is huge, having to maintain attendance, assessment, and everything else at the same time. You've got half the students at school that are supposed to be social distancing, but very difficult to get primary students or infants to social distance. And then you've got, so half the students at school, half the students learning at home. Some students don't have technology or IT, so teachers are literally driving to homes. But the biggest concern for teachers is the welfare of students in some unsafe homes that people are aware of, and then also the learning. But the main, so that's probably some of the challenges. But on the flip side, I did a social distancing, a workshop at a school only 2 days ago, and it was with social distancing. And the vibe was amazing. So some of the positives are the teachers' ability to come together in crisis, phenomenal. The collaboration, amazing. Supporting each other, outstanding. Some of the teachers are saying that they're loving working from home and they're actually feeling nervous about the world getting back to normal because they're not ready for it. It's almost like working from home has given people permission to slow down, and people have really, really enjoyed that. So everyone's in a different space. I think there's ups and downs in all of it. Yeah, lots of confusion, lots of frustration. Teachers are feeling like things are happening out of their control. Government policy is dictating what's happening. It's not, a lot of it's not possible in terms of what the government is saying we have to do. It doesn't work logistically. So there's that sort of frustration and control. I think principals are struggling more than teachers themselves at the moment, having to juggle requirements that are changing daily.
Yeah. And so what I hear you saying in all of that, Daniela, it's very much a shared experience. So all those points that you have raised around the teachers very concerned about the most vulnerable and at-risk kids, and also anxious themselves in terms of moving from their own safety bubble, school bubble, and also that hope. So what we have seen over here in New Zealand is, you know, our teaching profession, if they weren't together before, have really kind of stepped up with the collaboration,
absolutely,
the learning that has gone on. And I suppose what we possibly don't share is, so in some respects, there's been a little bit more certainty for us, given that we have all moved as schools together.
Yeah.
Of course, we're not in the, you know, the various state systems that Australia is under. So in that respect, we have things slightly easier.
Yeah, sure.
So we're currently moving into, so a lot of preparation is going on as we make that big jump. So coded system of going from level 3 to level 2.
Yeah.
So a lot of principals, teachers organising now for that, their children all to come
wow,
back really together. And what some of the conversations I have had with schools is, so ordinarily when there was frontline workers and their children just going back to school, a lot of schools are saying we're not actually going to give the choice, we're just going to say schools now back.
Yeah.
They've also recognized the absolute challenge and stress it would have on the teacher having to be in the classroom and be in teaching mode again, and also having to also think about their students at home and working from home.
It's just a juggle. The whole thing is a juggle. And, 2 weeks ago, Victorian schools were closed until July. And last week, or even this week, I think they said, no, now we're going to go back 1 day a week. It's like, which students are going back 1 day a week? And in New South Wales, they're going back 25% of students, but which 25% of students are going to go back? So some schools are doing it by year group, so year 7 and year 12. Other schools are doing it A to E. If your surname is A to E, you go back on Monday. F to K, you go back on Tuesday. So it's really, it's complicated. And I think for teachers at the moment, acknowledging that it's complicated. I don't know if you're familiar with VUCA. We talk about VUCA world. So volatile, uncertain, ambiguous, complex. And I think the complex is really important just to acknowledge and sit with that, because as teachers, we want to fix things quickly. We want answers. People come to us looking for answers, and we want to fix things. And when we're not able to fix something, we feel quite frustrated, because our self-critic is very loud as well.
Yeah.
Our self-critic, I'm not working hard enough, I'm not doing enough. Only 15 students came online out of 30. I need to connect with those other 15. How do I do it? So our drive in perfectionism, our drive of doing more is very high. And at this time, in our VUCA world, we need to be more human being, less human doing.
Yes, absolutely. And it just reminds me of something. So something that I've been asked to do quite a bit of is, you make reference to that inner critic.
Yeah.
So we talk about this idea of self-compassion. So all the work of Kristen Neff.
Yes.
And to reframe our language.
Yes.
Okay? So the idea of, okay, I am suffering. So you have to acknowledge certain things.
That's right.
This is where you are. And then you can turn to yourself.
Yeah.
Yourself, whatever you need in that moment. So moving from the I to the collective humanity of the we.
Yes.
We're suffering. So taking it out of your own personal space into a more broader setting. Is something that teachers have found helpful with regards to supporting some of that inner critic and that perfectionism, and around being, I'm actually just going to be a satisfizer as opposed to a maximizer.
Yes, I love it. Yeah, I mean, we often say as teachers too, we have eyes in the back of our head. And one of the things that I say to teachers in my workshops is, I want you to take that lens of eyes in the back of my head to eyes on top of my head and put yourself in the picture. Because what do you need in this space as well? And it's not about doing more. It's about being more available. And being aware. So it's very, ACT, acceptance, commitment therapy. Russ Harris has got some fantastic work around that as well. Just observing ourselves to say, what do I need in this space?
Yeah, I love that analogy, having those eyes on the top of your head.
Yeah.
Lovely. And it makes me think around, you sent out a survey just a few short weeks ago, just taking the wellbeing pulse almost of teachers. So from, if my memory serves me correctly, around 400 respondents from both Australia and New Zealand.
Yes.
Who's completed that. And one of the questions that interested me is, which of the 5 domains of wellbeing do you need the most support on? So talk to what you discovered when you received?
Yeah, sure. So when we talk about the domains of well-being, we're referring to cognitive well-being, so how I think, emotional well-being, how I cope, social well-being, which is how I connect, spiritual well-being, my beliefs and values, and then physical well-being, how I connect to my body or move, sleep, and exercise. And the biggest area that teachers identified that they want support with was emotional well-being. And so I was wanting to know, how can I actually cope? Another phrase I use frequently is, what are the things I can do to fill my own cup? Because you can't keep pouring from an empty cup. You must put something back in the cup. And it's more than self-care. It's actually self-awareness. And that's why I use that analogy again of putting the eyes on top of your head. But closely followed by the emotional support was cognitive support, so cognitive well-being. So how am I thinking? Now, as a teacher, the research shows that we can be involved in up to 1,500 decisions a day. So that's why on a Friday or on the weekend and your family say to you, what movie do you want to see? And we say, I don't care. And then they say, oh, would you like to eat Chinese or Indian tonight? And you say, stop talking to me, because my decision capacity is full. So we actually suffer from cognitive fatigue. So being able to manage that mind space, and this is where the mindfulness comes in, because mindfulness is important. Mindfulness is not just meditation, as we know, but mindfulness is be here. And the reason my mind is going a million miles an hour is because I'm thinking about what happened earlier and what I'm going to do later. So past and future as opposed to present. So that's where managing our mind is really important as well. So the emotional well-being was, how do I cope? And then the cognitive well-being, how do I manage my mind, because my brain doesn't stop, which results in poor sleeping habits and lots of other things, and all the pressure in the brain as well.
Yeah, and absolutely. And just because we're adults,
yeah,
doesn't mean we have all those positive coping strategies.
That's right.
We might have a credit card, but it doesn't mean we're good with money.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, so one of the things that I created as well, because we know also that the, one-off strategies don't work. So I created, just based on those, like a chat box thing. And what it is just little questions. So each domain has some questions. So this is on emotional well-being. So what are you grateful for? How do you vent? These ones are on spiritual well-being. Then you've got social well-being. And they're just well-being conversations, because as you said before, and we know, the types of questions we ask ourselves is where we put our focus. And if I keep asking, why is this wrong and who's to blame, it just takes me deeper into a rabbit hole. But if I ask, well, what am I grateful for right now? Who can I vent to? Who can I go to for support on what do I need? Then they're more helpful questions, and they help us come out into a better space as opposed to going down into a space. So it's really about developing our wellbeing literacy on a regular moment. So 5 minutes a week in a staff meeting, 1 minute putting a Zoom session, say, hey, let's type in the chat box. What's your response to this particular question at the moment? Those little reminders are sometimes all we need just to fill our cup just for a few moments.
Yeah, and the key to that, Daniela, that you've already mentioned, is that self-awareness. We don't get to any of this without that self-awareness.
Yep.
It just jam-packed full of for our viewers. And so as we're kind of wrapping up, I'm really curious to know, I always kind of ask, so how do you fill your cup, Daniela? And particularly over the last number of weeks during lockdown?
Well, look, to be really honest as well, every day is different, but if I look at my journey, so the last 6 weeks, the first 2 weeks when schools shut down, my income stopped overnight, my work stopped overnight. I went into meltdown of, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I don't know what to do. So I did nothing. I cleaned cupboards because I didn't know what to do with myself. I was like, I don't know what to do, so I'm going to do nothing. So that was my meltdown moment. Then the next 2 weeks, I thought, actually, I'm really enjoying being at home. I run like a lunatic most of the time. I'm either in a plane, a train, driving, or I'm in front of people. And so being at home was heaven. So the next 2 weeks, I read novels. I read spy novels. I did some online, did an online photography course. I did some other different courses as well as keeping up to date and connecting with schools and teachers at the same time. And then for the next sort of 2 to 3 weeks after that, I then felt so much more refreshed. And I thought, okay, I'm ready. I can go back in, launch into things. And that's when I really started connecting better with schools and principals to say, hey, what's going on? What do you need? How can I help you? And so just shared so much free stuff. I even did a free webinar, first aid for teacher wellbeing. And it would cover the Dr. ABC elements in a different way because people needed stuff. So one of my character strengths, if you like, is leadership, and the other one is perspective. And you won't be surprised to know the third one is honesty. And so I thought, well, how can I lead in the wellbeing space? How can I share a different perspective? And how can I just keep it real? Because some days are good and some days are pretty shit. So, and that's just the reality of it.
Yeah, and what you described, just your process, it reminds me of a model from family therapy. When we have a shock to our system,
yep.
Shock, we go into chaos,
yep.
we go into integration. So I'm hearing all of that, and then we
yep.
go to growth. And basically, we don't go in a linear trajectory. We
no.
backwards and forwards. Bit
Indeed.
right, the roller coaster analogy that you gave.
Yep.
So pleased to be able to connect
you
with
too.
Daniela, and best of luck.
Yes, thank you. And thinking of you and everyone over there in New Zealand as well. My mum is actually from Dunedin, down south. So I feel a close connection with New Zealand. And still got family over there as well. So good luck and congratulations on the amazing work that teachers are doing, and all the work that you're doing are as well in providing the support. So thank you for letting me be part of it.
Yeah, lovely. And thank you too. And as we say over it here in New Zealand, ngā mihi.
Thank you.